raw cut straight into it. So let's introduce our chaser that we will hopefully see from coming soon, and our two players that will be joining us. Oh, I love that picture. Let's leave that up. That's good. That's a good way to get started. All right, let's introduce the Sorcerer, HB, and Isquen. HB and Isquen currently waiting for us in the chat. Hello, chasers. Chasers. See the automation is real. HB, Isquen, hope you're doing
Hi,
well.
guys.
Honorary
Heyo.
chasers for today. Hope you're doing well. No.
Yeah, doing fine.
That's good to hear. Now, this is a good opportunity to find out a little bit about the players. We hear that the chasers always get an opportunity to, tell a little bit about their what's happening with their life in terms of either IRL or even just their gaming or video game music listening activities. So, do you want to give us a little bit about, as much as you want to or don't want to give about yourself, maybe where you're from, if you want to share that, or what kind of games you're into, and yeah, whatever. HV, Isquen, who would
Sure.
like to go?
Sure. I'm from Southern California in the United States. I think I've said that before. Right now. I've been playing the Castlevania DS games, which I have not played in a while, or in order of a collegiate case ever. But yeah, it's $25 on Steam. That is, in fact, a very good deal.
Yeah, there's
Especially
certain
compared
games.
to what Nintendo would price 3DS games as.
Yeah, there's some games on Steam that just refuse to go on special as well. Fez, I'm looking at you. It's impossible to find a low price for them sometimes.
But yeah, $25 for that amount of content is a very good deal. So I've been playing that. I've been, doing grad school applications. So fun times.
And what kind of got you into the chase, and what kind of music do you normally
I got into the chase because Dio in another Discord server I'm in, and Isquen is also in, ironically, linked linked a thing about how he was making his chaser debut, and that this is a fun thing that VGM fans would enjoy, and so I clicked on it, and several years later, here I am.
There you go. Got sucked in. Nice. Isquen?
All right. I am from Ohio. I think I've mentioned that a lot. I get mocked relentlessly for it because Ohio is kind of a running joke right now amongst the younger folks. I'm a full-time librarian for the moment. I'm probably going to be cutting that out by the end of the year, but I've been so for about 9 years. I mostly found Chase be similar to HB, except I think it was more Sergio that kind of got me into it.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio's not Indiana, so I get a pass. Yeah, but I come from New Jersey, Dio, originally, so I have the worst of both worlds.
And what do you?
Beyond that, I've been into video game music since I was a kid. I used to pick out stuff on keyboard when I was probably 10 or so, when I actually had one.
Yep.
But
did you feel like at the time that it was like no one else did, like such a you were kind of even aware that it's kind of weird to do, because you probably had a similar kind of timeline as I did, and myself and the boss, an old chaser, we knew that like this is kind of unusual to be hunting for VGM, and I mean this is around the time where midis were like the best you could get sometimes.
Yeah, I had the old days of AOL, America Online, back when we first had internet with the dial-up, and I remember specifically just tracking down some sites that are still. One of them is still kicking around, but it just hosts like fan-created midis. And I would download them at a very slow speed.
What was the name of the site?
It it was just VG music.
Yeah, I think I used to use that too. Yeah. Another good one was Nin sheet music, which I still use sometimes. Is a good place to get sheet music for anything. Yeah, they've got. I don't know. I think they've. I went into their Discord server one day, and I think they're kind of self-limiting in a way. Like, I think a simple suggestion, like difficulty rating, I suggested to them, it's like, why don't you have a difficulty? Because sometimes if you're a beginner at an instrument, which, let's be honest, pretty much most people who play an instrument are beginners. They you want to be able to play the VGM, but you don't want to be sitting there hunting for ages trying to find something that you can actually play. And simple like rate, and like, oh no, it's all subjective and blah blah blah. It's like, yeah, it is and it isn't. Like, classical music has a website that does difficulty rating, and it's amazing. It's so thorough. It's so thorough, and it's very good guidance. But yeah, nin sheet music. Learn from music from thousands of years, not hundreds of years ago, I should say. All right. Well, Sorcerer, I have a feeling must have either he's become busy with something else that's keeping him away, or maybe he miscalculated the day. So I'm not sure.
He may have thought it was like the weekend episode, so it's.
Well, it's so strange though, because we were constantly talking about it, so I don't understand. But I do notice that he didn't say anything in the private channel that we created. So maybe he missed that. But we did mention, I've added him very many times about it so far. So I'm not sure. I have a feeling maybe he thinks it's tomorrow night. Got that whole Monday Tuesday thing mixed up.
Or even possibly tomorrow morning.
Yeah, because you did say it was Tuesday a lot, but for everyone, but Namira in Namira's time zone, that it would be on a Monday. It's a Monday.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. I've thrown the invite out to the other chasers if they want to fill. It's a bit rough to fill in and just make stuff up. And by the way, I'll be totally making stuff up because I've listened to my track over and over again. I was dreaming of my track. I listened to it so much. It was burned into my head. But I will definitely be ad-libbing about it. So shall we?
Yeah, of course.
Shall we jump in? Would anyone like to go first, or I can go first if you're feeling a bit cold feetish?
I think it would probably be proper if you went first, right?
I'll go first.
Because you're the host.
Sure.
You know, this is your
All right. I'll just mention as well, as it's a few kind of housekeeping stuff before we get started. There is a new button called Question that you can use. 10 points, and I'll refund them at the end, assuming that your questions aren't stupid. I might punish you by absorbing the points otherwise. If you have a question while the track is playing, or while we're discussing and not paying attention to the chat directly, so I can ask those questions either to the other participants. I don't know. I don't have a word for you yet. Our guests. And the other thing is to, in the spirit of the point of the show, which is to listen to, which I actually haven't even mentioned that. So we're going to be just listening to a track. We'll give a little bit of a preamble about what to expect with the track before going in, and then we'll listen to the track, and afterwards then we'll discuss a bit about it. And I think in the spirit of that, I would recommend that people take the time to stop what they're doing and actually pay attention to the track as well. Just if you're going to enjoy it, then turn off all distractions, put your headphones on, like I was talking about in the show, smell the flowers, listen to the track. If we're going out of our way to share it with you, it probably means it's worth listening to. So I'm sure you can spare 2 to 5 minutes to listen to the track in full without distraction and really focus on it. Okay, so I just need to get my redeem screen up, and then I can talk about. Yep, that's good. All right, my track. Okay, everyone knows that I play Darkest Dungeon, and I chose the Blasted Heath from Darkest Dungeon from the DLC The Color of Madness, which isn't in the chase. And I've desperately been hoping that Darkest Dungeon would one day boost, but it always hovers around back and forth between boost and noost. Or it's mostly been noosting, and so it's kind of struggled a little bit to get a chance. Hasn't boosted in a while. And this track in particular is a bit different to the other ones. A lot of the Darkest Dungeon music is very heavy. A lot of people might find it a bit hard to listen to because it has very loud and aggressive, dark instrumentation. For those who don't know, it's like a gothic style roguelike RPG. In The Color of Madness, they introduce a new area called the Farmstead, and the concept behind it is that a comet has crashed into the farm, and this crystal-like alien creature has infected the whole area. And part of the whole thing about Darkest Dungeon is cosmic horror. But the cosmic horror in the other areas is more of Lovecraftian kind of. Well, some of them are. And the concept of things that you can't comprehend affecting the characters, causing them to go insane or have meltdowns and stuff like that is a thing. But The Color of Madness really pushes the idea that this is something that the heroes can't comprehend, this crystal-like creature that's infecting everything. And you'll hear in the music that it's unusual that compared to the other Darkest Dungeon tracks, because it has this kind of synthy crystal-like sounds that are coming through. And originally, right at the start, you'll hear it like a tinkling or cracking sound of the crystals, and then later on you hear it kind of warbling later on, and it really comes in strong at one point as well, which is the kind of the climax of the track. And there's this back and forth between the violins and this electronic sound. So that's probably what to look out for here, and then I'll talk about it a bit more afterwards. So we'll listen to The Blasted Heath from Darkest Dungeon. By the way, the Darkest Dungeon tends to have an intensifier when it loops, when it's the game is more difficult. But I'm not going to play the intensified version because a lot of the subtleties I feel are lost when there's too much noise going on with that. So we'll listen to it now, and I'll probably fade it out about halfway. okay, I'm going to stop there. It's quite a long track. It's still got a few more minutes, like 3 minutes to go. But you get an idea about how it changes in the second time. I forgot to mention that this particular area is an endless mode. So it constantly keeps giving you the decision, should you keep going? And then you have to survive another wave. And if you die, you lose everything, of course. So you keep having to make that decision of, oh, do we have enough to keep going further and going further?
Is there any reward to keeping going further?
More,
Is it just
yeah. There's bosses after like certain checkpoints, I guess, and yeah, you get more loot, I guess, for going deeper, quite valuable ones. So I think some of the parts that I wanted to mention in the track is the use of both the violin and the synth are doing this kind of staggering noise, like the whole time, where the sound is broken up, and I just really like how intense that makes it makes the track in general. The other thing is my favorite part. I'm going to just jump straight to it because I just like listening to it so much. I kind of think like I mentioned that the synth sound is more to do with like the alien creature, this crystal thing that can't be comprehended, so to speak, and you actually get hit by attacks that cause like that imply this in the game. All the farm creatures, like farm people and the horses, have all been infected. So you're fighting like horses and farm workers and stuff like that. You're also fighting the scarecrow and the farmer as well, like the main farmer. But they hit you with this. They're all affected by crystals, and there's a move called Haunting Revelation, and it's kind of implied. It's like a lot of them can do this move, and it severely stresses the character when they get hit by it. And I like to think of this part as the Haunting Revelation because the violins to me are kind of like the main characters, because it's the violins in this track are very emotional. It's very kind of like you can hear it in the thing. And then there's the moment where I would call it the Haunting Revelation, where the synth comes in and you can hear it drowns the violins completely, pushed right down, and that's the moment where it kind of like really hits. So I would say this is the embodiment of that, if I could get that nerdy about it. Let's have a listen. Yeah, you can still hear the violins under it as well, which I thought was pretty cool. That's probably the selling point to the track for me, and that's the part that I remember the most. Um, that's pretty much the major talking points that I had about this track. I'm not sure. I've listened to it so many times now that I'm sure I'm hearing it differently to some of you might be hearing it for the first time. But yeah, I don't know. Did you enjoy it? It's I know it's not everyone's taste, but
it was my first time hearing that one because I don't have the DLC for that game, but I played it.
It's very atmospheric.
Yeah,
actually,
it actually reminds me a lot of some of the more tense moments in a Diablo game, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like, except way more into the violin and the up tempo part.
Actually,
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that. Yeah, what HB said about the sorry, how did you phrase it?
It's very atmospheric. It really feels like you're about to die.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the game. But the game is stressful. The music in every stage is stressful. But this one in particular has like, it's even got the part where it goes dum dum dum. Like you can hear these big like drum hits just like stomping around. Just like you're doomed. It's over. Like, and the characters are all melting down at the same time, and it's crazy. But it's funny how you said atmospheric, because I was also thinking that when the track first starts. So I'll play the start a little bit again. You might now hear the tinkling sound I was talking about with the crystal sound right at the start. but it's almost like there's four corners of the room right at the beginning. You can hear the drums, then you can hear the violins or some kind of, I can't remember exactly, but there's definitely like four different sounds going on that create like a soundscape right from the beginning. So it's kind of like you're walking into a 3D sound room, if you know what I mean. I'll just play that bit again because I really like how it starts too, just very quickly.
Yeah, it's not something that I would like seek out to listen to on its own, right? But it is the kind of thing that in the moment I can feel like, wow, this is really all overwhelming, which I know the game is all about people being overwhelmed and going nuts.
It's something that like you it only makes like most of the other Darkest Dungeon tracks in particular only make sense in the context of the game. When I first listened to them outside of the game, I didn't really understand what I was meant to be enjoying about it too. And then I play the game, and it does come through. I do think Stuart Chatwood got better with every new edition that he added to the game, Crimson Court and then this, and I think this is the best one. There's a track after this called The Senescence, which is when they go deeper into this crystal world, basically, and the colors change to this kind of like if weird yellow pink kind of color, and that track's very good too. I wish I could play them both, but I don't want to drag along for too long. But
that's
right. Yep.
Sorry. So just a quick question for this one does this play the entire time that you're in the Blasted Heath, or is this just the battle? Or is the battle part when it's intensified?
So the game kind of seems to know when you're on the ropes. It doesn't change necessarily. Sometimes it does actually. It usually the music starts up and then you're not really noticing it, and then suddenly you're dying, and then suddenly it's the intensifier is playing, and the music seems to be at like plus 100% volume. So this is the first layer of. It's like you're just visiting the Heath for the first time. You can even see just the entry of it in the background. You haven't gone that deep yet, but even then, still, it's already quite like intense music. But that's why it's also quite kind of like a little bit quiet at the start too. The senescence definitely hits a lot more strongly right from the beginning. But
I might have to track it down.
Yeah.
This feels like a game that I would not be able to finish actually playing because I just get terrified.
Yeah, Darkest Dungeon's not for everyone. I definitely think Darkest Dungeon's not for everyone. You will know within like 2 hours of playing the game.
I thought you said
not fair. Not fair.
It's absolutely
It
not
feels
fair.
it feels not fair when you don't know what's going on, and there's a weird kind of thing where the game is at its hardest at the beginning of the game and gets kind of easier later on, partly because you know what you're doing as well, but also because your early characters are very vulnerable at the start. So it's a really rough entry to like a new player where the hardest part of the game is the beginning, and you are also like you don't know what you're doing properly. So yeah, fun for people who like to are suckers for punishment with games.
They like the learning curve. This is why I play Dota.
yeah. Anyway, I think that will round up the Blasted Heath. I hope you enjoyed. And yeah, go listen to, if you liked it, go listen to the Senescence. And yeah, that's me done. All right.
Well, Taffer has joined in the meantime.
Oh, nice, Taffer. I hope you are well.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I just may have, like, until literally about half an hour ago when I saw your message, I may have horrendously miscalculated and thought this was going to happen tomorrow at this time.
Yeah, we thought that too. You might have missed the podcast chat private channel that popped up. Yeah, fair enough.
I had to like disappear for like an hour right before it started. So
yeah, okay.
But fortunately, could have gone worse.
Welcome. Would you like to go Oh, you do actually. Perhaps we'll go alternate because Sorcerer just needs to get warmed up, I guess. HP Isquen, would you like to go next?
I'll go.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I'll bring up
All right.
your track here. So you've chosen. Oh, how about you introduce what you've chosen?
All right. So, as everyone guessed, I did pick Falcom. Be amazed. Be surprised. All right. Yeah. So this track, which actually Isquen and Taffer might be familiar with one version of it. This is actually a remix from the game's basically official remix album, but it's basically okay. So East games typically are, at least the newest ones, they're very Zelda-like. Like East 8, which you guys are familiar with because it's in Chase, that basically there's a tutorial and then it dumps you into a field and then you're off to the races.
Mm-hmm.
East 9 is not really like that. You're kind of trapped within a city the whole game, and it doesn't let you out into open field areas very often. So there's only 3 themes that play in fields, and this is not the first one. That would be another track called North Wind, but this is it plays quite late game, not actually in a desert area in a canyon, but you're just it's still the tracks in there, they want to convey a feeling of freedom, and this one a bit of a feeling of melancholy too, due to story stuff.
Okay.
But basically, this is the last main area you go to before the end game. Yeah.
Okay,
but
so does the end game have its own?
There's a final dungeon.
Okay,
There's like this one more dungeon, and then the end game.
Okay.
Right, but basically, I like Falcom music a lot, as you guys are well aware. I like guitar, violin interplay, but the unique part of this track is it's not just electric guitar, as we'll see.
Okay. Is there any particular part that we should look
let's
out
just
for?
start from the beginning, because that's my favorite.
Okay.
My favorite bit is honestly the intro.
Okay. Did you want to give us anything to listen out for, or we're ready to just jump straight in and play the track?
Yeah, I think I just want to jump straight in.
All right. Awesome.
See what
Let's go. Here is Desert After Tears from East 9.
God, it's peak.
Yeah, that was excellent.
Yeah, but all right. So I'm a huge fan of like when songs do like big acoustic guitar intros into then going into the actual song.
Mm-hmm.
There's a remix, the Mythos version of Departure from Mega Man 02 that I'm also a huge fan of. That does the exact same sort of thing. Like it's just acoustic guitar into it exploding out. And yeah, and unlike the original version of Desert After Tears, here the acoustic guitar is basically just keeps it stays through the whole time. Basically, it just the interplay between it and the strings and drums and the electric guitar, it's just really, really good. It makes me feel alive. It's just really nice to listen to, and that's really all I'm looking for at the end of the day. Sometimes
you said the intro was.
How do you guys feel about it?
I quite liked it. Actually,
sorry, I'm
a lot of times a lot of times East. I know I give you.
I know you and Taffer are not the biggest Falcom fans in the world.
I'm more. I don't mind it. I would think it was more. There was an excess of it at one point on other Discords, and that was what turned me off of it. But I don't know. Like when they're wailing on the electric guitar, in general, I don't know if that would be the feeling in the game because I've never played any of them. But that kind of hits me the same way that probably my my pet things do. When a guitar picks up in a weird location. In this case, it's in the desert, but you know.
I was muted. Sorry, at the beginning. I did say I thought it was excellent. I think you said that the beginning was your favorite part.
Yeah,
I think
that.
Yeah, I thought it was great, that beginning. I'm a complete sucker for this kind of. There are like kind of 4 or 5 instruments. It was piano and bass in the background for most of it, and then you had like the acoustic and electric guitar and the violins doing work in the foreground, and they were doing the whole handoff thing, like okay, my turn, okay, now your turn, kind of thing. And I'm a total sucker for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I can kind of imagine what that might look like on stage and how much the performers would be enjoying that kind of just performance-wise, how that would look. I know it's kind of weird to think of it performing when it's probably never been performed live before like that anyway, but that's kind of how I feel about it. And I even am a bit of a sucker for the part where it just starts all just becoming like a big noise, but in a good way. As long as it's earned it, if you know what I mean. Like if it just comes out the gate just with clanging and banging, then it's not thing. But it warms you into it, so that by the time the clang, like not the clanging, it's a harsh way to put it, but by the time you get to the climax of all the sounds together, you can actually hear the layers better because it warmed you into the layers, if you know what I mean. It didn't just throw you in to the deep end straight away. I recommend that we listen to the start again because I thought that was really good. If you don't mind.
Sure. I'm down, but I would like to point out Falcom does happen to make a lot of live recordings of its music a lot of times. I don't think that exists for Desert After Tears, but it might happen at some point.
Yeah, I mean,
but
it'll be interesting to see for sure. You'd need a lot of talented musicians to pull it off because there's a lot of execution here. Let's listen to the start again. Yeah, it's good. I just realized you guys are probably catching up through the stream.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe next time, just like bring the chaser, like the final spot.
The one problem with that is it lowers the sound quality Yeah, sometimes it'll cut parts off and stuff like that. So I'll see if we can come up with a way. Maybe we can do something on my end. But anyway,
yeah.
Yeah.
Not that terribly much of a delay, so I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. East games are, as people were talking about in the chat, so there's not really specific battle music other than for bosses. So what you hear in the overworld and in the dungeons, which dungeon games in East games tend to be, especially in the newer ones, a lot calmer. For example, at the end of Disaster from 8, which is a dungeon theme, and there are also, I think, a couple from. Then you also, well, Origins is a bit of a special case because it's basically all inside one dungeon. There's not really a separation there, but yeah. So the tracks have to be able to be. It may have to make sense when you're both just exploring and also just fighting.
Is this a game series we can jump in at any point?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay.
They're not. I mean, they have connections, but it doesn't really. They're not super about story and like long overarching plots. So just pick up any of them that seem interesting to you.
Interesting. Will this be your future submission into the chase? It's a good track to get started.
There's several There's a lot of Falcom games that I could submit in the future, and I mean, there's another East game coming out in English literally this month. So, got a lot of options.
All right.
Yeah, so, yeah, I guess speaking of that a little bit, like my personal experience with East is just that I played like a very, very small amount of the beginning of East 1, both on Master System and the PSP version, and also, which I think is the PSP version is the one on Steam is based on, but also like a very, very small amount of East 3. And I think a lot of times what I've seen fans of East say is that like you shouldn't start with 1 because the gameplay is really weird and stuff, but to people who say that you shouldn't start with 1, I say you clearly have not met me. But as far as the actual song, I think I mostly liked it. I think it was pretty. Like I would imagine that something that came to mind is that it's the kind of thing that probably sinks in better if you hear it in context, and it's probably more fitting for whatever context it's supposed to be with. And I would even say that it reminded me a bit of some like DS Castlevania tracks that I think had that same kind of impression on me. I think that may have come up at some point. It's sort of been mentioned that maybe some Falcon tracks are sort of kind of similar to that style, but yeah, that's kind of just taking it in with the backdrop that it's supposed to be paired with probably helps with semantic.
I'm looking forward to Portrait.
if we're looking at Castlevania like things that have East soundtracks, I mean, there's a reason I submitted Bloodstained. I'll just say that.
Yeah, actually, I'm come to think of it, this is quite in line with your submissions. Generally, it's getting a good sense of what pleases you.
Yeah, like I have nothing against East. There was a lot of Falcom going on at one point.
Yeah, I get it. VGMC kind of got inundated, and this song was in that year where that happened, which I have feelings on that, but I don't want to get into them here. Yeah. But yeah, East 1 is like kind of just okay. You have to understand that this game was like a contemporary of like Zelda 1, so action games like this were on console were like in its infancy, and if you've played Zelda 1, you know what that combat is like. You get the stick that's an inch long, and you get to poke that at people. So East 1's combat is strange, but consider what they work with, it's understandable. It's just all the later versions have kept with that gameplay, and now it's going to feel weird. So I would.
You said Origin fixed it, or
Origin is not a remake of the original. It's like a prequel, but you can jump in. Who cares?
Okay.
Yeah, but basically from East. Okay, so East 1 and 2 have their bump thing. East 3 is the original East 3, before it was remade, was basically a Zelda 2 clone. East 4 and 5 or East 4 was also like bump system. East 5 was weird. No one really talks about that one. And then East 6 and everything onward is basically Zelda-like.
Oh, okay. I didn't know it was that kind of. I thought it was more traditional.
I mean, it's a lot faster paced, but I would say Zelda is the closest comparison
Interesting.
into gameplay style.
A while back, the Chasers and I reviewed East Origin, and it was one of the better reviews that we did. And I think that's why East Origin does unusually well, is because we had that history with the Chasers, and so they're pretty aware of it, like the OG Chasers at the time. And yeah, it was well. A lot of them really enjoyed it and remembered the track. And then, of course, there was the mashup competition with Bonds with Companion that killed that track for everyone, despite it being one of my favorite tracks. Yeah, no, I think. Why do you think that East does better than Trails in the chase?
One is due to the context of when they were added.
Mhm.
Like 3 different Trails games got in within a year's time, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And that, or not 1 year, but like 1 year, 2 years. But so when you have SC and Zero and Cold Steel 3 all getting in there at the same time, people very much confuse them. And ultimately, it's because I think another issue is, unlike East, you can't jump in anywhere with Trails and be fine. So you kind of have to start with, if not Trails in the Sky, then at least Trails of Cold Steel 1, which isn't in Chase yet.
Yeah, actually, now come to think of it, the naming system makes it a little bit tougher.
Yeah, that too. So you can't. It's not very obvious that Trails from Zero is actually the 4th game.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, definitely not. Any final thoughts on this track before we move along?
So going back to the track, I guess one thing I kind of wanted to mention, but I also didn't want to be the last thing I said, was that while I did like the track, the one part that just kind of made noise for me was when the violins come in, because I feel like there's a lot of tracks that have that kind of style, and like a lot of Falcom tracks and similar that kind of have that going on. And I don't know, to me, whenever that comes up in a track, it just kind of blurs together. They all kind of sound extremely similar. But
yeah, I have to disagree on that, because the violin was what I enjoyed the most.
Are we talking about when the violin was playing like its solo part, or are we talking about when it was like the violins plural playing like backup, like quite aggressively? Do you remember?
I would say mostly the solo part, but probably both, honestly, to a degree. But
I mean,
like I mentioned, I mostly like the song overall.
Violin is a strange instrument where it's amazing, but also there's moments where if you focus too cleanly on it, it can be very annoying. Yeah, I can kind of see that. Do you know? I mean, maybe I can jump to it, maybe not. If it's a if it's a criticism point, we could probably gloss over it a little bit. I personally am, like I said, I'm a sucker for this kind of style of music. As both enjoying the parts, because there are a lot of acoustic instruments aside from the electric guitar, which I appreciate, but also sometimes you're just in the mood for the everyone all together, jamming out kind of vibe as well. Good energy. All right. Any last thoughts, HB, before we move on?
Yeah. Learn Falcom, guys. Please save Trails. I don't.
I'm trying.
Hopefully, at least when Spiral plays again, people will know it. But other than that, we'll see.
All right, good stuff. Shall we move along? Well, I said we might alternate. So, Isquen, if you want to wait just a little bit longer, we can jump to the Sorcerer next. If you're ready, Sorcerer.
Yeah.
I don't even know what you want to talk about here. So, yeah, what track would you like to bring up here?
I did send you a little message a while ago saying that I finished sending the track through the forum, but I guess
I was probably
can just DM it to you.
Yeah.
But I guess I can just mention it now. It's the track that I want to talk about is from Final Fantasy Tactics.
Mm-hmm.
It is Ultima: The Perfect Body, or Ultima's Perfection, depending on what rendition you adhere to. I guess it's actually that,
or Ultima the Nice Body.
Yeah, I love that. That
that's
name.
the one I said before, but that's actually kind of an interesting, kind of a good point to start talking about it, because if you look at the original kind of Japanese version of the FFT soundtrack, like half of the tracks on that are literally just in English, even though like it's half in Japanese, half in English pretty much, and the Ultimate tracks are ones that are just in English. So the fact that they changed like the Nice Body and the Perfect Body to something else was a very deliberate choice, which kind of makes you think a little bit. I don't know.
Ultima's Perfection, that's the name of the track?
Yeah.
Okay, I got it. All right. Did you want to give us anything to listen out for before we start, or would you like to just start the track?
Well, I guess one thing that I could mention, just kind of as a preface, is that maybe not listening out for anything specific just yet. I think we can get into that after. But one thing that I did want to bring up is almost 2 years ago now, I ran a Halloween-themed guessing game in another VGM Discord, which was the Super Darky Discord, and one of the tracks that got submitted for that was The Blasted Heath from Darkest Dungeon.
Oh, cool.
And the way that it was organized in the playlist was that it was that track and then this track right after it. So
what are the chances?
that are, I mean, it's not entirely like an accident, not really an accident. I think you'll probably see how that lines up if you listen to this track, considering the other one as well.
I am intrigued already. Also, the alternate name for this one we have is Cruel Great Devil King. No idea. All right, let's have a listen. This is Ultima's Perfection from Final Fantasy Tactics. right, there you go. We'll just wait.
And I guess one other track that came to mind. I guess taking a quick step back to the Blasted Heath. One more track that came to mind for me that's kind of similar to that one is a track called Keep Moving from a really good Diablo-like called Grim Dawn, which was a game that I did for the last Archipelago that we did actually, but I guess also going back to what I just mentioned of the guessing game that included these two tracks, it was like it had kind of like a framing device going on where the tracks were grouped into different sections with kind of progression going from one to the next, and then the final section had China Ogre from Shadow Hearts going into the Blasted Heath, and then that going into this, which was like the final boss track in a way. That set. And I guess as Luca has mentioned, I don't really want to go too much into talking about the context for this, because this game does have a really good story. Like, my kind of personal experience with this game is that it was recommended to me by a friend like quite a few years back, and then I just kind of kept putting it off until I finally played it a year or two ago. And yeah, it was definitely very, very memorable experience with just kind of the story and the world building. But basically, this is the final boss, final phase track. And I think just kind of my own perception, the overall vibe of it is, it just has that sense of spooky finality, spooky. This is definitely the kind of apex of the climax of what you've been building up to with this entire story. And I don't remember there's anything else I wanted to, like another specific point I wanted to focus on, but yeah, I guess, because I don't really want to talk too much about the more specifics of the context, but this, like the area where this place, where the battle takes place, is like a spooky, dark otherworld that you cannot descend to in order to be able to go after the last of the villains of this game. And I think that's the kind of soundscape that this has just fits that very well, and that also relates to something very unique that I think you'll very easily kind of notice about it, which is how it goes from like the opening section where it's just kind of builds up tension and keeps up that tension, and then it just kind of pauses for a moment and goes into a different, even more tense section. I think that's really well done how they do it. And
I was going to bring that up, but I'm glad you did. Instead, that long held note, and then it goes unhinged after that.
Yeah.
The flute's great. A flute in the middle of chaos is chaos, if you know what I mean. Like, it's just like, you know, the person who's playing the fiddle while the place is burning kind of thing. Like, I don't know why that I don't know why that just comes across so maniacal and unhinged in the end. I love that held note, by the way. Can we go back to the held note? Because I thought that part was very cool. There's like a cello or a bass, double bass, that holds a really deep long note for a while that bridges the transition. I think it was at around 1 minute 50, but I'll just see if I can quickly find it.
I think it's a little bit before that, like 140.
Oh yeah,
like
yeah.
Right before it goes into a transition.
Okay, let me see if I can find it. That was my favorite bit. Very creative way to do it.
Yeah, one thing that kind of comes to mind for me, at least, is how I guess between the flute and the little kind of rhythmic violin hits that come right after, or string hits that come right after. It reminds me a bit of
that part.
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
Yeah, that part reminds me of just kind of in my mind's eye makes me think of the, like, you know how in strategy RPGs, which this is, the characters have like a sort of walking place animation. That's what it makes me think of, the ones for this game.
Yeah, you're right.
Sorry, can you explain that again? I missed that.
Okay, so you know how in strategy RPGs, like, this is that kind of game where it's like,
Oh, they're walking on the spot kind of thing.
Yeah, they're walking on the spot.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of thing that I think that rhythm is a very good match for that kind of garbage.
Okay, it's very specific. It's always funny, actually. It's not an unusual thing to notice. I don't know if you thought that when you were playing the game specifically as well, or if that's just an afterthought. But it's always unusual when you notice that certain in-game animations are matching the music coincidentally. I've seen that a few times before.
I don't know. I think that in this case, it's more of an afterthought because, like, at least for when this is playing in the game, I think things are frantic enough that you're not necessarily focusing on that. But like one more track from this game that kind of gives me a similar kind of feel as Trisection.
Mm-hmm.
It has a rhythm that makes me think of that just when I listen to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when you first mentioned that this was the song that you picked, I was almost cackling back here. I did have to mute for a second because, me being a giant 14 nerd, they've remixed this one as a final boss, final phase for a raid last expansion, and it was
How much of the essence of the track was kept intact?
Yeah, except the only change was they added a choir to it because that's what 14 does.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting how a lot of the songs today are gothic horror or gothic horror inspired games, because you have Darker Dungeon and this obviously, and then East 9 also dips into that aesthetic. And since I know what Isquen, at least what game he picked, it'll be an interesting contrast.
Yeah. I think part of the reason why maybe we were unintentionally drawn to that kind of thing first is because with these games, it's they go into it deliberately to try and have a higher meaning to both, like, when they're designing the world, the music. It's not just surface level. It's intended to be quite in depth, and that the composers would have gotten that directive. Like, this is not silly business. Like, this is it has to mean something, because we're trying to explain something that's a little bit more abstract or um, hard to comprehend. So it forces the person to have to sit down and think. And I think that is obvious through the music as well. They have to sit down and think a little bit harder. It's not as simple as make a track that makes you feel sad or happy or some kind of like step one emotion. It's more
Well, you mentioned Unhinged, and even in the context of 14, you can mention that character that was playing against is extremely unhinged.
I mean, that's kind of just the gothic horror thing in general, is just people who are just
kind of thing.
yeah.
All right. Any other?
No way. Sorry.
So that's good. Any other final thoughts on Ultima's nice body and Ultima's perfection?
I
mean, nice body is the one before this one. This is
Oh, the one was. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
It is fun.
Nice is not perfect.
I think it's. You mentioned how it's interesting they were changing the names, and other than spelling Ultima wrong, it just seems like the perfect body, just versus perfection. It just seems to have connotations, right? Right? Because when I hear the perfect body, I'm not thinking what this box looks like.
It's now that I think about it, I happen to have read this recently, and I thought about it when I was about the Darkest Dungeon track when I was thinking about things to say. The concept that perfection is like horrible in a sense, like there's something we don't actually like perfection. It looks uncanny to us, like generally when something is like something being perfect is not human, if you know what I mean. Like there's something very alien about the concept in a very do you guys? Am I just talking nonsense at this point? You kind of know what I'm
I think
talking
it's
about.
because it just completely strips away the freedom. Like if
Yeah.
you're hitting perfection, you're in stasis. It's
Yeah.
flat out.
Nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Down.
Yeah. Like Electric said, like perfectly symmetric faces. The idea of perfection is
Okay, he said perfectly symmetric faces, and then the fucking GIF got posted again.
yeah.
Yeah.
It seems to be like perfection, ultimate perfection. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like again, without really wanting to mention anything too specific, I will say that I guess if you consider that extrapolate that perfect body or perfection to what it represents in the game is very much not something that you would associate with just I don't know, something a normal human would be like. But
I mean, their idea of perfection, right? Like Ultima's version of perfection, I guess. It's always a bit. You know what it always reminds me of? That scene in Lord of the Rings when Galadriel gets tempted by the ring. It's always,
She'll be a queen.
yeah. It's always that scene always sticks with me in the sense of like someone else's idea, or like even a good person's version of like ultimate perfection or something will just be like terror for everyone else kind of thing. Yeah, just a thought. All right.
I guess, yeah, just as a final thing to mention, I will say that this track has become a staple for me as not just top 100, but top 10 in my top 100 from Chase Stuff. And it just really made an impression on me when I played it, finally played the game and got to the end and heard it in context. Like all that just kind of came together to really leave me with that impression. And it could have been, it's a game that could have been in Gameplay this month, but wasn't. So, well, next time, I guess.
It also, like Final Boss music also has a disadvantage of only being really heard once a lot of the time, unless you're dying all the time, which is a different story. But it has to impress straight away. Like there's no time to have repeat listens, so it's always got that challenge.
Yeah, I mean, this is like the gameplay in this game is turn-based. So in theory, you could just kind of sit there and listen to it. But
yeah, true. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you, Sorcerer. We've got one more track to go. It is Isquen's Okami track. Do you want to introduce?
It is, yes. So I picked Okami for a reason, just as a starting. And specifically, I picked Ushiwaka's appearance.
It seems like the morning sun has come to vanquish the horrible night.
So it's funny how this is coming full circle in that we're talking again about a Zelda game and probably one of the best Zelda games I've ever played. That I come back to going every couple of years to try and play through it again. Waka's appearance is very so. Capcom does good character themes just in general. I might have submitted a lot of them when I was going through these applications, and they were all from Capcom. This case, it's just a simple. It's a simple like, here's this character that's acting antagonistic towards you, but it's completely at odds with the music, and we'll just listen to it through it pretty quickly, and then I'll talk a little more about it.
Sure. So we'll jump in straight away now.
Yeah, there's not. Yeah, we'll just listen in.
Cool, no problems. Here is Ushiwaka's appearance from Okami. for everyone to catch up. It's great.
So it's a light theme. It's very memorable for me. And what I wanted to bring up specifically about the game itself, I had never owned a musical instrument before I played Okami, actually, because I had two brothers that both kind of ruined music for me when I was younger. They both, well, we were poor, and they both took saxophone early on, and both of them, you know, hated it.
Mm.
I, being the middle child, really liked music, and because I was the middle child, I did not get into that. So after probably a couple years, this I think I played it for the first time in 2005. I
Mhm.
was ostensibly an adult. I used some of my own money to just buy a bamboo reed flute and try and learn it.
Mm.
It didn't work very well, but specifically the flute melody in that thing is that in Ryoshima Plains, which is another track from this game, Shinshu Plains, or no, Ryoshima Coast and Shinshu Plains and Webkir, all those tracks were like, okay, I want to pick this up and try and learn it. Didn't work out that way, but it's it's a fond memory of mine. And this track specifically, I love because it also gets incorporated in later on. You fight him, and it's a wake up call of a fight. You've been kind of breezing through combat throughout the game, and then this picks up with a mix of a spirit extermination, which is playing with Ushiwaka,
Mhm.
and it's I love it. I don't know what else to say. Where it's got the spirit, the yo starting off,
Is it
followed by the
you go?
sorry,
Followed by the.
followed off by that flute sting that plays throughout.
Is it a surprise that you have to fight him?
Um, Not really, because he's been leading you by the nose, and your mouthpiece throughout is kind of very skeptical of him. So Isquen doesn't like him for whatever reason or another.
Okay.
It's been a while since I played it, so I don't remember the exact amount of it. But yeah, he's completely on your side, even though he's doing things like saying, "Oh, if I see this next boss, I'm going to have a drink with him." I don't know why not. He's trying to guide you, being the half baked prophet that he claims that Issun claims he is.
Mm, mm. And
But like
going,
Amaterasu knows, but she can't talk. So
I
you know,
see. Yeah.
that's what it is.
Going back to the flute. I mean, it must have been quite an inspired moment to go out of your way to do that. Um,
Yeah.
some of the,
I
some
had it
instruments are
custom
hard
made and
to.
everything, and I can't play it.
Is
The
it?
holes are too big in it.
Oh, is it? Did you have to pick it up in real life, or was it ordered online?
I had it shipped,
Yeah.
but I had it commissioned,
So
so
when you mean the holes are too big, did you say?
it's too big for my hands.
Ah,
Yeah,
interesting.
I have a smaller silver flute that I can play
Hmm. Just a classic
and that I
regular
can
flute.
make music out of it,
Hmm.
or I can make noises out of it. In terms of actually playing it, that still leaves a lot to be desired because I'm sort of self-taught.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
But yeah, no, I was just curious from the whole group and anybody who's listening, has anything ever gotten you into getting a musical instrument? Has
um,
I used to play piano, but I just stopped. You know,
um,
yeah,
run out of time, and in college I didn't have access, so.
Playing an instrument is a slow process, and it's very difficult when you are inspired by a certain piece of music, but you don't understand at that point what level that piece of music. It might seem simple, but you then quickly realize, oh, I think I'm completely out of my depth with. I'm entry level, and I'm trying to play something that's, even if you wanted to play the piano to learn like a very famous piece like for release or something like that, you don't realize jumping straight into a piece like that right after buying it will cause you nothing but pain, and
yeah,
can put you off doing the whole thing. You kind of have to go from the beginning and work your way up, and then by then you realize, oh, but that's still a long way away, and you've probably lost the inspiration. It's a bit of a cruel game with getting inspired by music, sadly.
So what you're saying is recorder rounds are never coming back.
No, recorder round. I mean, I wouldn't say that, but recorder is actually, you have to buy a proper one. Although I mean, I don't know how many people will bother, but I think, yeah, you just have to. Perhaps you could blow the dust off your literally off your flute, and maybe just the other one, the one that you actually can play.
The silver one, yeah.
coins,
No,
yeah.
there's still like I've got the bamboo one. It's bamboo
Mhm.
right next to me right now, but I can make a noise. I can't control it.
I think piano. I already was. I started learning piano when I was very young, so it wasn't inspired by anything. Actually no, I'll say that's a bit of a lie. My teacher, primary school teacher at the time, used to play the organ in class, and I don't know, I just wanted to give it a go, and then she taught me. So my first teacher was my school teacher,
Yeah.
and so that was a bit lucky. But anything that I've played, because I have a few other, like I don't just have a recorder, I've also got a harmonica as well. I just like the harmonica. It just looks nice. I can't play it, but it's actually really hard to play. And I thought maybe I'll try some pluck track on it. Oh, that was ambitious. That was way too ambitious. That didn't go down well. Much easier to pick up and play recorder than harmonica for sure. I can't think. I've tried violin. That's hard. That's very high barrier of entry for violin.
When I was in middle school, like I think pretty much every school year up until then, I had been playing recorder for the music class that they had us do. But in violin in middle school, I was kind of playing keyboard on my own, and then also got a violin for the music class that we got when we were at that point. But I didn't really stick with it afterwards. And part of that was because I think some of my keys broke on the keyboard that I had, and the violin, I don't know. I still have that. It's in the corner back there, but I don't know. I just haven't stuck with it, and it's been like I don't know how many years since I even changed the string, so I don't even know if that would still be usable.
For those who are interested in resurrecting, like you've got instruments lying around, or you're interested in getting started, as someone who's pretty deep in with piano at the moment, and thinking back on what would make the difference of not having a dusty instrument sitting in the corner somewhere and actually being able to play something and enjoy it, my advice would be to just you just have to be happy with playing very simple pieces right from the beginning. Don't treat the starting pieces, even if you're having to play Mary Had a Little Lamb, as some kind of I just got to get through this to get to the other thing. There's a lot of very simple pieces that you can just enjoy as they are. I think it's a very bad mindset to have where you're like grinding through instrument music. As soon as you start doing that, you will not enjoy it. If you're practicing and you're treating it like a grind, you will not. You won't. It will die. You have to kind of enjoy it at its most simplest level to make progression. And I would probably add on top of that, ask someone who knows a bit more to direct you on what to play next, or to start with, because one of the worst, like we've already touched on it, but trying to overreach right from the beginning causes the problem, the biggest problems that I see. You have to play at your level, and you will learn much faster that way because you're not struggling. It won't take you months to learn one piece, or even years to learn one piece. You can learn hundreds of pieces in months if you kept it simple, and that will make you progress much faster. And then you can play that other stuff later. But in terms of this track, sorry to bring it back,
That's all right.
Waltz time. That was something as well. This is a 3/4 time. It gives it a very springy dance like feel to it. And I love all the Japanese percussion. They've got like these bells, the wood block sound that clacks in every now and again with this nice echoing sound. And the metal sounding shamisen, I think it is. I don't know if it's that instrument specifically that plays here, but it's some kind of harp like string instrument that's going off in the background. Once again, that kind of crystal sound that gives it that ethereal kind of noise as well that's playing. And yeah, big echo sounds on the flute really makes it ascend. I think that was my kind of compositional take on it.
Yeah, and
Anyway.
Luco in chat had said that it's like it's dancing on water because, well, it's funny because he is.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Well, that adds a bit to it as well. Was there any part in particular that you wanted to go over again, or it's quite satisfying?
No, it's just in general. Like I had time. You had mentioned timestamps when we were prepping, and like just 11 seconds is when the flute itself kicks in, and it just goes through.
Yep.
But it's in the background comparatively for me. So when I first had listened to the song, I had my hearing in general. I didn't mention that part for anybody who is new here because I do have to make it about myself. I have gone half deaf since probably 6 years ago. Just I had a growth in my ear and it shorted out the nerve, which kind of sucks.
Yeah.
And now this sounds weird to me if it's just on one speaker, like the panning that happens during it. But it's still like beautiful. It just sounds like the flute is way more in the background than it was before.
Have you had those moments where you've always been listening to a particular track through speakers or headphones, and then you switch one day and you're like, "Whoa, it sounds completely different!" Like just generally, like for everyone.
Actually, I had that back when I still had my hearing when I was listening to Final Fantasy IX for the first time, and the TV I was playing it on didn't have stereo output.
Okay.
So the field track sounded really weird because it didn't have the main melody. It was just the entire time. I'm like, that's an interesting choice, but
And then you grow used to it, and then when you hear the real thing, you're like, "Nah, I preferred my version of it." Anyone else's thoughts on Ishiwaka's appearance?
It's just easy to listen to. It's big contrast from the other tracks today.
Yeah, it was just straight up pleasantness.
Yeah. Now, if I had done the the battle track when he just turns the flute into a lightsaber and tries to hit you, then yeah, Okami's a weird game.
What are you talking about? That happens in Japanese mythology.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, obviously.
A blade of light out of a flute while running on water.
No. I'm kidding. I don't think that actually happens.
Now
unless
all of us have mentioned so far some kind of reference to another track after our tracks have played. So I think what we might do is after the show, I'll grab your follow-up recommendation. So if you liked X, you might like Y kind of thing, or this is the second part of this track, like you were just mentioning now, Isquen. So that I'll post in the announcements, like this was the podcast, this is what we talked about, and here are the tracks. So if anyone missed it and wants to listen to them again, they can. But also, if you like this, you might like that kind of tracks underneath it for those who are interested. So I think everyone had a follow-up thing they at least mentioned so far. So yeah, there you go. I think that covers pretty much all four, and that 10:30 here, so that's a good time to wrap it up.
All right.
I think we did an all right job making stuff up on the fly. What do you guys? Yeah. I enjoyed all the tracks. I'm definitely. It's just nice to be able to listen, just sit and listen properly, and I enjoyed all of the tracks today. This is exactly what I was hoping for, says Luco. Already excited to come on and enjoy. Actually, a good time to segue into that too. If you want to be on and then just give a TED talk on on your track, then fill out the form. I pinned it in the general, and let us know, and we can see who we can get on. I think the next time slot we'll probably do at an Australian time, which might be at night time here. So we'll try and accommodate that with some Australian players or even European players, because that time works for them pretty well too. And actually, I think I know. I actually think I know who would be next. Neither of them are Australian, so whatever. But I think the Chaser will be. So we'll go with that. Any final thoughts, guys, before we leave it there?
This was fun.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
I had fun. Still kind of surprised none of us picked Castlevania, but it's okay.
Well.
There's plenty of time. I think there are a few shy people out there, so I wouldn't be too surprised if you might find yourself back on here in the not too distant future. And if we're getting a big build up of requests, then who knows? Maybe we do end up doing it fortnightly, because it's just nice to enjoy the music.
We'll turn it into Chase Karaoke one day.
Oh no!
That will have to be a spin-off show hosted by someone else, maybe. I don't know. All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, HB Isquen and the Sorcerer as well, for being part of the show. Thank you very much for the viewers for listening in with us. I'll fix up the question, Redemption. Obviously, that the oversight of you can't type in anything was a problem. And yeah, we shall see us all.
Well, you can't. I didn't even realize.
Yeah, you could just press question. It takes 10 points away, and that's it. I'll give you your 10 points back, Isquen. All right. So we'll fix that up for next time, and yeah, we'll see us all next time on the Thursday regular Chase quiz show.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Pleasure.
See you later.
Yes.
See y'all.
Bye.
For a bunch of topics.